to 6 Celsius, and there'll be variable amounts of cloud first thing as well. There'll also be increasing amounts of showery rain moving through Northern Ireland, parts of Wales, northern and central England, as well as the northeast of Scotland. The showery rain will become more widespread by the afternoon, so for much of England and Wales it's a case of bright spells interspersed by showers. Drier towards the northwest, western Scotland mostly dry with some decent sunny spells, 12 or 13 Celsius here, 14 or 15 in the southwest, just 10 again on the North Sea coast. Friday starts off cold with a frost in many places. A sunny start, but quite quickly the cloud will build and we'll see further showers here and there, particularly towards the east. The weekend brings more unsettled weather from the south, longer spells of rain affecting many parts of England and Wales, drier for Scotland and Northern Ireland.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize yet. With thanks to Variety Cruises, a family company sailing since 1942, you have the chance to win a £10,000 7-night small boat cruise for 2. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, you'll be able to choose from any one of their 2025 Greek adventures. Plus, you'll also win £10,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer sizzle. And we'll pack you off with these luxury travel gifts. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. I'm back and I'm raring to go. Did the police want to batter patriotic Englishmen? And
it is damaging for asylum seekers in need of protection and safe and legal routes to be heard.
You will not believe what woke Welby has said about Rwanda now.
He was ditching their biggest election winner for a pint-sized loser.
How taxing was it for Rayner to come up with that one-liner? But
we will do it as circumstances allow.
Labour's massive defence U-turn.
We will increase defence spending to a new baseline
of 2.5% of GDP by 2030.
Sunak has now torpedoed Starmer on defence and... Is this the end for the cavalry? Animal Rising thinks so.
The bulk of the bullying and abuse that I was experiencing, it's not catty, it's cruel.
Well, there are bullying allegations against Meghan Markle, and a star is born.
Make a sound of a seagull for us, will you?
If you don't know what that's all about, I'll fill you in. On my panel tonight is the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Oh, and what do you get in this thing? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. I take the Archbishop apart, line by line. Next.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Our top stories tonight. A teenage girl has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after 2 teachers and a student were stabbed at a secondary school in Wales. A Man Valley school was put into lockdown shortly after 11 a.m. after 3 people were injured. Emergency services responded, including Wales Air Ambulance. Police say the injuries are not life-threatening. Forensic teams have been on site and a knife has been recovered. The suspect remains in custody. Superintendent Ross Evans spoke to the media.
I'm aware that there is footage circulating on social media, and I would ask that this is kindly removed to preserve the integrity of the ongoing investigation and to avoid further distress to those involved. This was a very distressing incident, and our thoughts are with the victims.
An online terror group has become the first of its kind to be proscribed in the UK. MPs voted for neo-fascist group Telegram to be banned. The Home Office says the group publishes propaganda designed to incite followers to commit violence. It was credited by an attacker who killed 2 people in an LGBT nightclub shooting in Slovakia in 2022. Support for the group will be illegal, with punishments of up to 14 years in prison. 3 men have been arrested following the deaths of 5 migrants, including a young girl, while trying to cross the Channel yesterday. The National Crime Agency says they were arrested on suspicion of facilitating illegal immigration and entering the UK illegally. Those detained include 2 Sudanese men, aged 22 and 19, and a 22-year-old South Sudan national. It comes as figures from the Home Office show that more than 400 migrants crossed the Channel yesterday. A man has been charged after a 9-year-old girl was kidnapped in Knightsbridge in central London. 56-year-old Robert Prusak was charged with multiple offences, including kidnap and sexual assault. The child was reported missing on Brompton Road in London on Monday. Well, the government is set to face a High Court challenge against its XL bully ban. Campaign group Don't Ban Me, Licence Me has been given permission to bring legal action against the Department for Environment and Rural Affairs. The large bulldog-type American breed was added to a banned list in October last year following a series of attacks. Campaigners argue that the ban is unlawful and irrational. And the Army says 3 soldiers were hospitalised when household cavalry horses bolted in central London this morning. Several military horses were spooked by construction noise and unseated their riders before making off. Video posted to social media appeared to show one of the animals covered in blood. At least 4 people were injured as they galloped their way through the busy city streets. They were eventually rounded up and transported for veterinary care. For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts, scan the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Back now to Patrick.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. I'd just like to start by giving a massive thank you to Ben Leo, who was fantastic whilst I was away. So thank you very, very much, Ben. But let's get down to business, shall we? Rwanda is happening. It's a go. And it's time to pick Archbishop Justin Welby's response apart, line by line. He said, "We retain deep misgivings about the Safety of Rwanda bill passed in Parliament last night for the precedent it sets at home and for other countries in how we respond to the most vulnerable. Well, I have long suspected Archbishop Welby is pro-complete open borders, so it comes as no surprise that he wouldn't want other nations to enforce theirs in this way either." He continues, "This includes victims of modern slavery and children wrongly assessed as adults, whom we have a duty to protect." Data shows that between 2016 and December 2022, there were 7,900 asylum cases where the age was disputed. 49% of them were found to be adults. Welby goes on. "We note with sadness and concern the rise in hostility towards those who come to these islands seeking refuge and the way in which the treatment of the refugee and asylum seeker has been used as a political football." OK, what rise in hostility? Where is the evidence for that? Take the Bibby Stockholm barge as an example. There are numerous different groups there working together with teams of lawyers to do all they can to welcome these people and allow them to stay in Britain. What there are, however, are people who are concerned about national security and the safety of vulnerable people, not least women and girls, and people who are worried about their house prices plummeting because they now live within 100 yards of a migrant hotel, something that Welby doesn't have to worry about himself. He continues, "We are disappointed that the kindness and support offered by churches and charities to the people at the heart of this debate, those fleeing war, persecution and violence trying to find a place of safety, has been unjustly maligned by some for political reasons." Right. Mr Welby knows that the issue is with economic migrants and that there is no war in France. The Archbishop hit out at people who dared to suggest that the Church of England had been, quote, deliberately facilitating false asylum claims. Now, this is a very grey area, isn't it, Mr Welby? Because as he knows, it's very difficult for people like me to know exactly what is going on inside a member of the clergy's head when they are helping someone with their asylum claim. But we can have a look at some facts, can't we? The C of E was accused of running an asylum seeker baptism conveyor belt. They strenuously denied this. They called it nonsense. But then, quietly, a couple of months later, they decided to launch an urgent review. Well, why would you feel the need to launch an urgent review if you thought that there wasn't even just a possibility of a problem there? Mr Welby then sought to vindicate himself by saying, when asked, neither the Home Secretary nor officials could provide evidence to support the allegations of widespread abuse. Note the use of the word widespread there, OK? So, what, there might have been just a bit of abuse? A smidgen of abuse. Judges have raised concerns about it, being generous, really, and saying that well-meaning vicars are being misled. We've had cases like an Iranian migrant who didn't know that Jesus was born in Bethlehem. When he was asked in a religion test, the 42-year-old didn't attend church and hadn't been baptised. So those are some of the people we're dealing with here. Now the Bishop of Chelmsford is admitting that the C of E may have been duped by some asylum seekers. I mean, a few months ago, we unearthed this document, didn't we, which is how members of the clergy can support asylum seekers. Letters of support, finding legal advice. There is a Rizzler paper here between well-meaning, naive vicars who've been conned or people who were willfully lying and fudging asylum applications. So we can identify a pattern, but we can't prove an underlying motive. And Welby knows that, doesn't he? Welby knows that. Whether he likes it or not, in my view, it is clear that human traffickers, lawyers and illegal immigration fixers have seen the Church of England and other churches, not just the C of E, and other churches, as an open door into Britain. But this is the crucial point for me. Welby said this. Like so many in this country, we seek to support a system that shows compassion, justice, transparency and speed in its decisions. We grieve the appalling loss of life in the Channel today. He made those comments yesterday. The Archbishop has done everything possible to block the Rwanda bill, to block the deterrent, adding to the backlog. Now, yesterday people died again in the Channel. OK, listen to these Channel migrants when they find out about the Rwanda plan.
I'm very stressed, he tells me. I don't know what to do. All I can think about is this letter and Rwanda.
Rwanda is not a safe place.
Does it make you regret coming to the UK?
Yeah, if before I came here, you say that, sent to me in Rwanda. I never come here.
They never come here. Does the Archbishop not think that maybe, just maybe, if flights to Rwanda had taken off a couple of years ago, that those people who sadly died in the Channel would actually be alive today? But let's get the thoughts of my panel. This evening, I am joined by the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. I've got businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and, of course, we've got the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Mark, I'll start with you. I mean, really, I just found that was quite disingenuous, some of that stuff from Welby.
It's pretty extraordinary. Look, I accept that there are left-wing political campaigners who want Britain to have basically an open borders policy. But Justin Welby's not supposed to be a left-wing political campaigner in a slightly silly outfit. He's supposed to be the head of the established church in the United Kingdom, in England at least. And I don't think he should be making these political points. So whilst, Patrick, I probably agree with your takedown of his actual policies, he shouldn't be making these sort of observations. He's describing the government as using asylum policy as a political football. You'll have to refer me to which gospel Jesus talked about political footballs. If the Church of England wants to remain an established church with 20-odd bishops in the House of Lords, they need to talk a little bit more about Christianity and good faith and a little less about left-wing politics.
Are you a churchgoer, Mark?
No, I'm not.
So part of church is the gospel and learning about what's in the Bible. But in every portion of the Church of England Church, they give a sermon. And that has historically, since the church has existed, been them giving a political view.
I think they should.
So that is...
I think that is disestablished.
But is a huge, important tenet of being a religious leader.
That is
100%. Throughout my entire life, I have sat and listened to them give political opinions. They are supposed to.
I don't mind left-wing campaigners getting together and hearing a sermon. I do mind them automatically getting the status of having 20 or so bishops in the House of Lords if they want to pronounce those sermons as legislation's going through.
But we have a Church of England because it's our national...
My view is we should disestablish it. I don't think it should have pride of place, particularly given the clear political agenda the Church of England now has. They're entitled to have it, but not as an established church.
They have always had a political agenda. This isn't...
Well, and they shouldn't. So I'm saying,
you're entitled to your opinion,
disestablishment of the church.
No, I think.
Can I just ask, given the fact that church attendances are plummeting, do you really think that...
They're not, actually, no, it's not dramatic. People have been talking about it plummeting since the 90s.
They have lost... This is right off the top of my head now, because I did this a few weeks ago, but they have lost about 500,000 people since the coronavirus pandemic started.
People didn't come back necessarily after church, but that doesn't count. That is literally just Sunday worship. That's not evensong, that is not Christmas and Easter.
All right. Look, this guy really gets under my skin. I mean, I'm not a religious figure, so, you know... This Archbishop of Wokebury just doesn't stop getting involved in politics. He's a Romaniac that lives in an ivory tower that isn't affected by what these migrants are doing in towns and cities across the UK. I speak to worried parents that have got migrant hotels near their child's school. I've seen migrants walking up and down a town called Epping, just a few miles from me, causing mayhem, going into council offices, demanding things from council staff. Why is he getting involved? At the end of the day, he's a Remainer. EU countries have got detention camps. Some of the countries deport en masse. Yet he never says anything about that. Why does people like Justin Welby always paint this country as the boogeyman? Why are we the bad person? Because he's the head of the Church of England, so it would be odd for him to be commenting on France. We do so much more for these migrants than most countries, yet we're painted in such a bad light. There is
potentially a little bit of an irony, really, which is that he is content, it seems anyway, for the overwhelming importation of people from Muslim countries. As the head of the Church of England, I'm not really sure how that marries up.
Again, so liaison between different faiths, including Islam, has always been a really important part of the Church of England, and it's how you have a harmonious community sense, and that's always been... So I grew up going to church, and absolutely we would go on visits to mosques. It's important to keep that communication going. That's part of his job.
Look, if Justin Welby was clearly just a left-wing campaigner in a slightly silly outfit rather than the head of the established church...
Fairly disrespectful to people's faith to call it a silly outfit.
Well, I think it is a silly outfit, so... but he is a left-wing campaigner, and he is using political terms. He's not using Christian
As he always has. They are Christian. I think people get confused. People think it's like the BBC. It is not an apolitical establishment.
Can I also just ask as well, I mean, they have launched an urgent review, supposedly, into these allegations, which they categorically deny.
Because they're trying to get it right. Absolutely.
But the statement that he put pen to paper on there, which, by the way, was not just the Church of England, it was other churches as well. I read that as them completely absolving themselves from any of that stuff, and I really think that's very disingenuous.
But
they haven't done a proper analysis of this. If the C of E was talking about when asylum seekers arrive here, whether it's within the law or not, we will provide them shelter and housing and food and the rest of it. I think I would understand, even though I'm not a Christian myself, I would understand the Christian teaching there. This is something that could have been sent out as a press release by the Labour Party.
But it would be counter to the word of the Bible to refuse somebody a baptism if they're asking for it.
Justin Welby is going against the majority of this country.
Not the majority, 48%.
No, with the rhetoric on this. The majority of people are angry or worried about illegal immigration.
48%
we do not want our taxpayers' money being wasted on these illegal immigrants. They're economic migrants. They're not asylum seekers. We've got horrific crimes being committed by some of them. God knows who we're importing, terrorists, gangsters, rapists. We do not know. It's a national security problem.
And he points out that we need a faster, better system,
The church is facilitating it. We wouldn't have had the alkaline attacker if he hadn't been converted to Christianity.
Well, fair enough.
But he was from Afghanistan.
He was Baptist, but I take you.
And he was from Afghanistan.
I take your point. He was from Afghanistan, yeah.
Yeah, so we automatically took everybody from Afghanistan, and we all agree that, like the Ukraine program, that was correct. As was correct.
OK. All right, OK, well, look, there we go. Thank you very much for another lively start. It's good to be back. Still to come. As the French come under fire for yesterday's migrant drownings, is David Cameron wrong to suggest that leaving the ECHR would not help solve the small boat crisis? Lee Anderson takes David Cameron to task. He's up shortly. But up next, Tory MP James Sunderland goes head-to-head with former Labour Minister Bill Rammell on whether or not Rishi Sunak has actually played a bit of a blinder here over defence, as he torpedoed Keir Starmer on that crucial election issue of defence spending. This is Patrick Christys tonight. We're only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
We're now going to talk about Meghan and Harry. There was a polo match they took part in Miami, and we've got Angela Levin, royal correspondent here. So, what have you picked up from this this polo match?
Well, the interesting thing is that the polo thing that's going to be photographed and filmed for Netflix, this is Harry's one.
Yes.
But there was Meghan centre stage. And she stood there holding the treasurer.
Yes.
And actually, who she pushed around was a doctor, Dr. Sophie Chankuka, who's chair of Santabile, the charity that they're doing it for. And she was asked if she would take the trophy. And she said, yes, that's why she came, because the money from the polo match is going to this charity. Huh. And Meghan had to push her out of the way because she wanted to be in the middle. I've never heard such a disgusting, rude thing to do.
That at the end of the day, she's an actress. She knows how to take centre stage.
Yes, but this was bullying.
Actual physical pushed her.
No, she didn't actually physically push her, but she wanted to go next to Harry because it was her charity. And so she bent down under the trophy and then went the other side of Meghan, and then she's all smiling. I mean, that turns my stomach, actually. Yeah. I mean, anybody would know that that's not appropriate. Let Harry have a little thing of his own. He scored the goal that made them win, and you'd think she would be really pleased. He pecked his lips, he pecked her lips. It wasn't actually a great passionate kiss, as the paper said, because it didn't last more than a second. She's crushed him to nothing.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight, only on GB News. Now, still to come, Lee Anderson hits back at Foreign Secretary David Cameron, who insists that leaving the ECHR would not help stop the small boats crisis. But first, has Sunak beaten Starmer on that crucial election issue of defence spending? It's time for tonight's head-to-head. So, Rishi Sunak this week announced bold plans to increase Britain's defence spending by £75 billion over the next 6 years, bringing Britain's annual defence budget up to £87 billion by 2030. This will make us comfortably the biggest spenders on defence in NATO, after the US, of course. Now, as recently as yesterday, Labour were pledging to match the Tories on defence spending.
Yes.
2.5% by 2030?
2.5% as the target we need to get to, because that is part of our obligations.
By 2030?
That is part of our obligations as a member of NATO. So that is what Labour would be working towards.
Do you want to match that? Would you do it by 2030?
Yes, Labour would want to match that.
Labour would want to match that. But then this morning, Emily Thornberry was wheeled out to perform another screeching Labour U-turn.
Keir said several weeks ago that we wanted to move towards spending 2.5% on defence, and indeed when we were in power last, that was about the amount of money that we were spending. But we will do it as circumstances allow.
As circumstances allow. While the Labour Party once again goes back on word, Sunak is actually doing something significant now to keep the country safe. He's been in Germany today too, deepening defence ties with Europe as the war in Ukraine rumbles on. So tonight I'm asking, as Labour U-turn on their defence spending pledge, has Sunak torpedoed Starmer on that crucial election issue of defence? Let me know your thoughts. You can go to gbnews.com/your say or tweet me at GBNews. While you're there, make sure you go and vote in our poll. The results to follow shortly. Look, going head-to-head on this now are Tory MP James Sunderland and former Labour Minister of the Armed Forces, Bill Rammell. Chaps, thank you very much. Great to have you both on the show. James, look, I'll start with you, really, here. I mean, it looked a little bit last week, anyway, like maybe you'd been outmanoeuvred by Keir Starmer. And I do think that now, actually, it looks as though Rishi Sunak has, to quote an op-ed in The Sun today, saved all of our lives.
Well, the answer is quite simple. Defence of the realm is the primary function of government. This is non-discretionary activity. The decision has been taken to go to 2.5% of GDP as a commitment. I welcome that commitment, but it's a reflection of the fact that the world is a dangerous place, the fact that our foes are emboldened, the fact that the threats are multiple, and that we have to spend more on defence in order to safeguard British interests.
I'll bring you in now, Bill. I mean, it does appear as though that was just a skin-deep policy announcement by Labour, wasn't it? You were always going to have to just look under the bonnet of the finances. Ben Wallace said, oh, this is what you'll do. You'll say that you need to look at the finances, you'll have a look at the finances, you'll order some kind of review, and we'll be 2 or 3 years down the line under a Labour government and there'll still be no whopping great big increase in defence. He was right, wasn't he?
No, because fiscal credibility and responsibility matters to the Labour Party. And we've said consistently we want to get to 2.5% of GDP, but as resources allow. But, you know, what Sunak has committed to in terms of a specific timetable is wholly lacking in credibility. 14 years in power, having crashed the economy, having cut the army by 40,000 soldiers, having reduced defence spending from 2.5% of GDP as it was under the last Labour government. Now, in the dying days of this administration, they commit to the biggest defence transformation in generations. And on top of that, he says today they want more tax cuts. It's Liz Truss with knobs on, and it would bankrupt our public services and bankrupt the economy in terms of a specific timetable.
OK, all right, but look, James, I will put it to you, is there a whiff of what happened to the police here, where you cut 20,000 police officers, or however many it was, and now you expect a round of applause for, you know, redeploying them?
No, not at all. We've seen the peace dividends of the Second World War and the Cold War. Threats have changed. Responsible governments adapt to circumstances, and the announcement today is reflective of that exact priority. And of course, it's interesting to listen to Labour, of course, because 3 of the current cabinet, their shadow cabinet, voted against Trident not too long ago. So Labour can't be trusted on defence whatsoever. This is a clear commitment. Labour are all at sea over this. It was embarrassing watching Labour today. Their backbenchers were outflanking their front bench on shadow defence, and it was actually quite amusing to see the fact that the Tories are still on a march on this. The Tories are doing the right thing. The Tories are investing in defence and security, quite rightly, because of the world that we are living in, and Labour has no answer but to snipe from the sidelines.
All right, look, Bill, you've snatched defeat from the jaws of victory here, the Labour Party, OK? It all looked very rosy a couple of weeks ago. Now, under the Tories, with Rishi Sunak, we have a vow to boost UK defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2030. And actually, we don't know what Labour would do we?
Look, if Sunak was serious about that, he would have put this commitment in the budget. He didn't.
Do we know what Labour would do, Bill?
Yeah. This is pure electioneering. Look at the scale of the commitment. It's more than the whole of the national schools budget. If you look at the future Tory public spending commitments, there are 17% cuts in non-protected areas.
But what are Labour's commitments to defence, Bill? Go on.
Yeah, our commitments is to get back to the amount of money we spent on defence as a proportion of GDP, but as resources allow. We've had the wish fulfilment from the Tories. We saw how unfunded commitments can crash the economy as we had under Liz Truss, and we're not going to repeat that.
So it's not a policy bill, is it? Look, with respect, Bill, it's not, is it? It's, well, we'll look to do this as resources allow. One day, Bill, I'd like to buy a Maserati when resources allow. That's not a commitment, is it, Bill?
Well, but sorry, if you make commitments that you don't have a credible means of delivering, you imperil the economy. 2, you break people's trust in the process of politics and government. That's what we've seen over the last 14 years under the Tories. We're not going to do that as a responsible and credible Labour Party. And, you know, this is about pure electioneering. The Tories have made this commitment at the fag end of their time in office. They know that it will have to be delivered by the next government, almost certainly a Labour government. It's a scorched earth strategy so that they can then criticise the Labour Party in power. It's not serious and responsible government.
Look, James, Rishi Sunak is adamant that this is fully costed. Is it? Can you prove that?
Yeah, it's fully costed because the figures have been released. If you look at the OBR forecast and the way in which the money will be found, to 2030, I think it's pretty clear from the documents that came out. But it's conservative fiscal pragmatism that currently is resulting in inflation falling. Interest rates will fall, mortgage rates will fall, costs are thankfully coming down in many areas. And of course, the economy will grow and continue to grow. And therefore, it's imperative that we use the benefit that we derive from increased income, from higher wages, from higher taxation, which is a function of a improving economy, to invest where we need to.
So with respect, James, then, Bill is right. You're going to tax us more so that we can boost our defence more. Is that just the truth of it?
No, not at all. I mean, taxes will ultimately come down, but don't forget the take for the Treasury will go up with an improving economy. That's the point I'm making. And it is imperative right now, if you look at what's happening in the world, Labour can talk about when fiscal conditions allow, but the fact is we've got the Russians now who have invaded Ukraine. Ukraine's not too far away. We have a non-discretionary commitment to counter that threat with increased NATO spending. That is what's happening. We've got instability in the Middle East. We've got the Houthi firing on British ships. We've got Iranian instability in the Middle East. It is imperative that the British government, that a responsible British government, protects its people.
Oh, look, both of you, top stuff. Thank you very, very much. Again, we could have just carried that on for another hour or so, but we've got to rattle through, so thank you. That was Tory MP James Sunderland, former Labour Minister as well of the Armed Forces, Bill Rammell. Look, who do you agree with? So has Sunak now beaten Starmer on that crucial issue of defence spending? Your verdict is in. Interesting, this. So 69% of you agree that Sunak has beaten Starmer on that crucial issue of defence. 31% of you say that he hasn't. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? I suppose it's that cast-iron commitment from Rishi Sunak. It all looked great for Labour a couple of weeks ago, and then they've decided to all row back and go, well, we'll have to look under the bonnet of the finances. And you think, well, you probably will, but actually, does that mean you'll ever do it? So anyway, coming up, Meghan Markle bullying rumours are resurfacing years after Palace staff first spoke out. So could the dam be about to burst? Former royal correspondent for the BBC, Michael Cole, gives his unrivalled insight. But next, David Cameron has contradicted his boss, appearing to rule out leaving the ECHR to solve the small boats crisis. But can the Rwanda bill really save Britain's borders? Lee Anderson tees off on Lord Cameron right after this break. Don't miss it.
Hi there, welcome to the GB News forecast from the Met Office. It's going to be chilly overnight. Through the next 24 hours, however, increasing cloud will bring further showers by the end of Thursday. We've got higher pressure ebbing away towards the west and this increased influence from low pressure to the east. In between, some clear spells overnight and a chilly northerly airflow. That means temperatures will fall quickly. Under any clear spells, in rural sheltered spots, temperatures will dip below freezing. Generally in urban areas 4 to 6 Celsius, and there'll be variable amounts of cloud first thing as well. There'll also be increasing amounts of showery rain moving through Northern Ireland, parts of Wales, northern and central England, as well as the northeast of Scotland. The showery rain will become more widespread by the afternoon, so for much of England and Wales, it's a case of bright spells interspersed by showers. Drier towards the northwest, western Scotland mostly dry with some decent sunny spells, 12 or 13 Celsius here, 14 or 15 in the southwest, just 10 again on the North Sea coast. Friday starts off cold with a frost in many places. A sunny start, but quite quickly the cloud will build and we'll see further showers here and there, particularly towards the east. The weekend brings more unsettled weather from the south, longer spells of rain affecting many parts of England and Wales, drier for Scotland and Northern Ireland.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
The International Monetary Fund has estimated that Russia will outgrow all advanced economies in 2024. This is in spite of all the sanctions the West has imposed on Russia, in spite of its removal of the SWIFT banking system, in spite of the fact that Germany has almost entirely weaned itself off Russian gas, and in spite of the 50,000 soldiers who have died and the endless resources it has poured into the Ukraine war. So, what are we missing here? Why is Russia going to grow more than the rest of us? Well, it's simple. Russia is willing to make use of its own energy resources to provide abundant supply to its citizens. Increased supply means lower prices, and cheap energy is inextricably linked to economic growth. But since 2008, the United States has grown at twice the rate of the United Kingdom. The big difference is that America has much lower energy prices, while the UK insists on masochistic green policies. But it's no surprise that the Green fanatics in the Scottish government, where they know how to be fanatics, have had to backtrack on their flagship greenhouse gas reduction target. The SNP has committed to reducing Scotland's CO2 emissions by 75% by 2030. Now, the Climate Change Committee has reviewed its policy and advised that the absurd reduction target is out of reach.
Can we accept the CCC's recent re-articulation that this Parliament's interim 2030 target is out of reach? We must now act to chart a course to 2045.
It is time to recognise the truth. that net zero by 2050 is unrealistic and unaffordable. It's time we rid ourselves of this foolish and costly idea that will simply make people cold and poor. We need to prioritise cheap energy for Britain's consumers and for companies, for industry, enabling economic growth that will benefit us all.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight on GB News. Look, coming up, former royal correspondent for the BBC, Michael Cole, sheds more light on the Meghan Markle bullying rumours that are threatening to resurface. But first, it's time for Reform UK's Lee Anderson MP. 5 illegal migrants, including 1 young child, tragically died while crossing the Channel yesterday in a shockingly overcrowded dinghy the French authorities had waved off from the beach with no real resistance whatsoever. This comes just hours after the Safety of Rwanda bill, designed to stop the small boats, was finally passed in Parliament. And then, in an apparent contradiction of the Prime Minister's position, David Cameron has today come out with this.
I would say is we have to make sure we deal with illegal immigration. That comes first. I don't think it's necessary to leave the ECHR. I don't think that needs to happen to make this policy work, but I know what matters the most is being able to say to the British public, we've got a fair immigration system, we've got a strong immigration system, and we're not putting up with illegal migration. It must be for Britain to say who can come and who can't come, rather than anybody else.
Well, meanwhile, Starmer seems sure the Rwanda plan won't work at all.
The government has lost control of the borders. But this Rwanda gimmick is not the way to stop it. It cost an absolute fortune, £300 million already, another 50 million either this week or next, to remove a few hundred people. That's a drop in the ocean.
OK, well, Lee, welcome to the show. Now, is David Cameron right that leaving the ECHR wouldn't help solve the small boats crisis? He also really kind of blamed our migrant crisis on Brexit, didn't he?
I don't think that's really... he shouldn't be saying that, to be honest with you, Patrick. Actually, you know, the fault of this problem we've got at the moment, the migrant crisis, is that we've got a weak government that's not prepared to do the right thing. And the right thing is turnbacks in the English Channel. We know that works. Other countries have done it. It's succeeded in the past. And to be really brave, when these illegal migrants, let's get it right, Patrick, they are illegal migrants, they're not genuine asylum seekers. Once they get to this country, stick them on a boat and send them straight back to France. It needs political will, it needs a courageous government to do this, and we can do it.
But is he right, then, though, that we don't need to leave the ECHR?
I don't think we do. I mean, I would sooner leave the ECHR. Just ignore it. Take these people back. These people are breaking into our country, and we've seen the awful news yesterday, Patrick, 5 people dying, people rushing these dinghies on the French beaches, jumping on and creating mayhem, people, you know, being thrown into the sea, little children dying. It's disgusting. And actually, Parliament, where I work, has got blood on its hands. This should be stopped.
What have you made of David Cameron, you know, when you were in the Tories?
He's a... to be fair, I mean, he's unelected. I mean, me and several colleagues and probably most of Ashfield weren't very happy that a bloke just turns up and gets a lordship and becomes Foreign Secretary. Every other MP in that place, you know, regardless of what party you're in, Patrick, has had to fight to be elected, had to fight for votes, had to campaign, had to knock on doors. He rocks up, is given a place in the House of Lords, become Foreign Secretary, not accountable. We can't question him in the House of Commons. We have to do it through other ministers.
But he was blaming Brexit a bit as well, is the thing. Because he was saying that, you know, when we were in the European Union, we could have had this returns agreement with France, and now we don't have it. What do you make of that?
Well, if he's blaming Brexit, then he needs to have a look at himself in the mirror, because it was him. He needs reminded that it was him that gave us the referendum that ultimately left it for us to leave the European Union. So if he's going to blame anybody, blame himself. But I don't swallow that at all. Again, Patrick, I go back, you know, it's political will. You know, if we'd had some of the leaders in charge of this country like we've had in the past, like a Churchill or a Maggie in charge, this nonsense would not be happening.
OK, all right. Now, I'm just going to shift it on a bit, because I saw this story this morning, and I thought it'd be quite good to get your take on this. Rishi Sunak is urging big businesses to employ prison leavers to solve Britain's labour shortage, with free courses on a range of skills, including forklift truck driving, gardening and furniture painting. Now, look, Lee, is this a clever solution to rehabilitation, or actually, frankly, a disaster waiting to happen?
Well, I've always said that I always believe in giving people second chances, Patrick. I think there's a lot of people in prison
that need a second chance. Obviously, some they can give them 2, 3, 4 chances, and they will recommit offences. But we have in this country probably about 90,000 people in prison at the moment, and I know for a fact, we all know that we've got probably 80-odd thousand vacancies in picking fruit, picking vegetables in the agricultural sector. That, for me, has always been a simple solution. I've said it in the past. But look, we have prisoners coming out of prison now. They've got nowhere to live. They've got no job. They've got no skills. The chances of them reoffending are pretty high. I say give them a chance, learn them a trade, get them into that habit of getting up in the morning, going to work and being respectful and learning those life skills and those work skills they need to get back into the employment market. Give them a chance.
Yeah, look, I'm all for that. I am all for that. My concern would be a situation where a hard-working school leaver who's done nothing wrong in their life finds themselves in a situation where they're being bumped down a queue because someone who's just left prison, a prolific shoplifter or whatever, is being trained to drive a forklift truck for free instead of that. But we can't have that, can we?
No, I understand that argument, Patrick, but then again, to keep a prisoner in prison is probably £1,000, £2,000 a week to keep these people in prison. It's much cheaper. And it's better for the country if we can get these people. Some of them's had a bad start in life, we know that. I've worked with some of these people in the past. Give them a chance to work and contribute towards our society. If they can't, if they're going to be complete nuisances and reoffend, then get them back inside and lock them up, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, now, you marked St George's Day yesterday in your own unique style. Just a little reminder to people, I'm going to be getting stuck right in, actually, to what I thought was absolutely disgraceful scenes yesterday. Really disgraceful scenes from our police, who, although they might deny this, I thought seemed incredibly ready to want to really, really go on the offensive against just patriotic Englishmen and women. But, Lee, like I was saying, you had your own unique style when you were marking St George's Day. Should we have a little look? Go on.
Look at these here, look. Flag of St George. It's St George's Day today, and this country of ours has been a gift to the world. Look at the Industrial Revolution, culture, arts, music, sport. Everywhere you look on this planet, you see some of that.
So not everyone was feeling as patriotic as you, it's fair to say, Lee. One Twitter user said, here we go, classic. What was this? St George was born in Cappadocia, Turkey, the 27th biggest producer of avocados. He's also the patron saint of Catalonia, which celebrates La Diara de Saint Jordi today, and of other nations. If he arrived in the UK shores, this is the classic line, if he arrived in the UK shores, right-wingers like you would deport him to Rwanda. Well, I mean, look, it'd take a bit more than that to dampen your patriotism. What do you make of these people who are so ready to just, urinate on your chips, Lee?
Well, I mean, these people, it's completely wrong whether this person is about being deported to Rwanda. They'd probably get put him, St George would probably get put him in a 4-star hotel. He'd probably put a dodgy asylum claim in, go to the local church and claim he's a Christian, get baptised, and then do whatever he wants to do. But this is nonsense. Whenever I put something on social media, Patrick, that is seen as patriotic, you get these lunatics, these nutters coming out, just dissing our country. And quite frankly, I've always said it, if you're not happy with our history, our heritage, our culture, our way of life, and things like St George's Day, then clear off and go and live in another country.
What did you make of some of the police response? We're going to talk about this a little bit later on. It's been a big issue, this. What did you make of some of the police response?
Well, it's funny you should say that, Patrick, because where my office is in Parliament, it's literally 50 yards away from Downing Street, and I've been there for the past 4 years. I've seen the BLM riots, which was scary. I've seen the pro-Palestinian marches, the Hamas supporters up and down Whitehall on an almost weekly basis, and yesterday I saw the St George rally there, and it's the first time I've ever seen the police get stuck in. All the other times when we've had some really scary scenes, when as MPs we've been scared to go out, they've done nothing. I wasn't scared to go out yesterday. It was just 150 lads with St George's Cross, a bit boisterous lad, but they weren't causing trouble, from what I could see.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've got some quite damning clips, actually, really, to play you shortly anyway, which just compares and contrasts the difference in police reactions to the kind of things that Lee was just talking about there and the kind of reaction that we saw yesterday. Get your views coming in, though, of course. Lee, look, thank you very, very much. Yeah, like I was saying, so was the heavy-handed police response to St George's Day crowds yesterday another sinister example of two-tier policing? To be honest, I actually wonder if it went a bit further than that. You know, is it now becoming illegal to be a white English patriot in this country? I'll give my take at 10. But next, allegations of bullying made against Meghan Markle are bubbling to the surface once again. But could former staffers be ready to expose all? Is the dam about to burst? The BBC's former royal correspondent Michael Cole reveals all, and it's next.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
OK, now we've just been talking about smoking and the long-term effects that smoking can have, but things like obesity can have short-term serious health effects on very young people. Has there been any analysis of these 3 million as to how many would be described as being clinically obese?
The data doesn't break down by weight. I would strongly suspect, and certainly there has been analysis of the interaction between obesity, the labour market, that shows that yes, it is a profound challenge within the economy. So I would suspect that there's something there that is at play. And I think that raises an incredibly valid point that we have objectively failed to get a grip on obesity in the last 20, 30, 40 years. It's remarkable to me that the obesity rate amongst children in the 1970s and 1980s, it was about 2%. Today, we have about a fifth of children entering primary school with obesity. I don't think that's a sudden moral failure of those people. I think that's down to the fact that the food on our shelves has got significantly more unhealthy, and we haven't really intervened against that.
I want to hear from you one big idea of what we can do to try and improve this.
I think we need to finally get some long-term aspiration into this. So we have a net zero for climate. That's a 30-year mission that every government department, every business, every individual has a role to play in bringing down. We know what the contributions are. I'd like there to be a net zero for health. What is the 30-year aspiration for health to make us the healthiest country in the world? And from that, what can every government department, every business, every individual, every community contribute to doing that? Because ultimately, I don't think there's a path to having a strong economy without sorting out the UK's quite dire population health. We are the literal sick man of Europe as it stands.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Still to come, after police fought with St George's Day crowds in the heart of the capital yesterday, why aren't they so heavy-handed with pro-Palestine protesters? I'll give you my take at 10. But first, we welcome former royal correspondent of the BBC, Michael Cole, for the Royal Dispatch. So, bullying rumours are swirling around about Meghan Markle once again, with esteemed royal biographer Tom Bower claiming that the dam of silence has finally broken. There's a trickle predicted to soon become a stream. Rumours of Meghan bullying aides at the palace first broke back in 2020 after the Sussex's former communications secretary, Jason Nauf, raised a complaint. Fast forward a few years' time, and Meghan's former senior royal officer, Samantha Cohen, has now revealed to an Australian news outlet that she was one of the staff interviewed in a subsequent bullying investigation by the palace. Well, the investigation was triggered by several resignations from Meghan's team, with one staffer said they'd been left feeling sick after a tirade from the Duchess. Others says, I feel terrified and I can't stop shaking after tantrums from Meghan over issues as significant as the wrong shade of red being chosen for guest blankets at a lavish shooting weekend. This is all according to reports, of course. Bauer believes that now one of the staffers involved in the bullying investigation has spoken out. Plenty more will soon follow. Michael, welcome to the show. Look, is the dam about to break, do you think, on Meghan Markle's bullying allegations, or actually has she done nothing wrong?
Good evening, Patrick. In Buckingham Palace, Patrick, there is a big safe, and inside that safe is the equivalent of an unexploded bomb. That is the report that was drafted by the lawyer who was asked by Buckingham Palace to look into these allegations of bullying, which allegedly took place after Meghan Markle joined the royal family in 2017. Now, the lawyer spoke to 10 witnesses, and I'm sure guided by employment law and codes of conduct of the civil service, he drafted his report and he presented it, and it went in the safe. And I'm sure that the key to that safe is in the pocket of the King's private secretary. And what has happened is nothing. The 10 witnesses who gave their time and gave their testimony do not know what the contents of that report is, let alone the rest of us, and it hasn't been made public. So one has to ask why it hasn't been made public, and perhaps that is a decision that the King will take in due course. But obviously he has to balance it. What is going to be the effect depending upon the content of that report? Now, as you just so rightly said, witnesses, some of them said that they were shaking with fear, that they were in tears, they felt physically sick. And it is worth saying that since we've been taking an interest in Meghan Markle, 17, I repeat the number, 17 close members of staff have left the employ of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
I mean, it's a lot, isn't it? I mean, it is a lot. And obviously this could be for a variety of different reasons. You know, they do a lot of different projects. That might have all been, you know, just short-termism and people using them for a leg up, whatever. It could be a variety of different things. But I think it does raise some serious questions, doesn't it? And once one person comes forward, others can. And the thing that normally does for people is hypocrisy. And if Meghan Markle is on record, which I believe she is, saying that she felt hurt and bullied, etc., then that kind of stuff tends to come back to bite you, doesn't it?
Do you know what I think it is? It's a cultural difference. In this country, we tend to say, if we're talking to the waiter or somebody serving us in the shop, may I have, could I possibly have something? In America, they say, can I get a cheeseburger? It's so very different, and that is absolutely accentuated in Hollywood, where people are given orders, particularly even if you are the sixth person on the call sheet for a show called Suits. You order people around. It's peremptory. And, of course, if you've got blue eyes, do you have the right shade of blue eyes? Because if you don't, you're out on your ear. There's none of the civility, none of the politeness, none of the things that we take for granted in this country, or certainly used to. So I think it is a cultural difference, perhaps, because when you have to struggle to the top in Hollywood, you can bet your life you've had to tread on a few fingers on the way there. And that has been accentuated by, I think, a lack of understanding. That said, certainly you mentioned Samantha Cohen. Was called Samantha the Panther for her straightforward ways when she was working for 20 years and very closely with the Queen. She apparently said or raised the question of whether Meghan ever intended to be a member of the royal family, but her sights were already set on California and going back to where she felt most comfortable. One thing that has been quoted is that Meghan said that it is not my job to coddle these people. Well, you can coddle eggs and you can also coddle people. So we don't know. But what I think it would be very, very interesting to see what is in that report. Now, the King has got to make a judgment. If this judgment is very negative, and let it be said, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have strenuously denied that she was ever a bully.
Yeah.
But if this lawyer who wrote the report and interviewed 10 people, if he decides otherwise, and if it is damning or highly critical, then what would the reaction of the Sussexes in California be? Would there be more bile? Would there be more accusations? Would there be more unpleasantness? So it's a difficult situation. The answers are all inside that safe. And the key, as I say, is in the pocket of the King's private secretary.
Well, watch this space. Watch this safe, Michael. Thank you very, very much. That is the wonderful Michael Cole there. All the best. Take it easy. Now, coming up. As military horses escape, wreaking havoc across London, is it animal cruelty to use horses in the military? In 2024, Animal Rising's co-founder, Dan Kidby, goes up against Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. We're debating that one. But next, after riot cops clashed with St George's Day crowds in central London yesterday, is this another example of blatant two-tier policing? I'm actually going one step further than that. I'm asking whether or not it is becoming illegal to be white, patriotic and English in England. I have my say, and that's next. This is Patrick Christys tonight. We are only on GB News, and now it's your weather with Alex Deakin.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the GB News forecast from the Met Office. It's going to be chilly overnight. Through the next 24 hours, however, increasing cloud will bring further showers by the end of Thursday. We've got higher pressure ebbing away towards the west and this increased influence from low pressure to the east. In between, some clear spells overnight and a chilly northerly airflow. That means temperatures will fall quickly. Under any clear spells, in rural sheltered spots, temperatures will dip below freezing. Generally in urban areas 4 to 6 Celsius, and there'll be variable amounts of cloud first thing as well. There'll also be increasing amounts of showery rain moving through Northern Ireland, parts of Wales, northern and central England, as well as the northeast of Scotland. The showery rain will become more widespread by the afternoon, so for much of England and Wales it's a case of bright spells interspersed by showers. Drier towards the northwest, western Scotland mostly dry with some decent sunny spells, 12 or 13 Celsius here, 14 or 15 in the southwest, just 10 again on the North Sea coast. Friday starts off cold with a frost in many places. A sunny start, but quite quickly the cloud will build and we'll see further showers here and there, particularly towards the east. The weekend brings more unsettled weather from the south, longer spells of rain affecting many parts of England and Wales, drier for Scotland and Northern Ireland.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize yet. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys, and I'm raring to go. Did the police want to batter patriotic Englishmen? And if you hate Britain, they'll let you walk free. And time to bring in the cavalry, or has the horse already bolted? Also,
he was ditching their biggest election winner for a pint-sized loser.
A kinder, gentler politics from rattled Rayner there.
We will increase defence spending to a new baseline of 2.5% of GDP by 2030.
Sunak beats Starmer on defence spending. Also,
make a sound of a seagull for us, will you?
I'll tell you all about that very, very shortly. On my panel tonight is the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and author Rebecca Reid. Look, can you spot how many things are wrong with this?
Today what we're going to do is we're going to shout, Free Palestine. Can I hear that? Free Palestine!
A lot. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Is it illegal to be white and patriotic? Next.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. Our top stories. A teenage girl has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after 2 teachers and a student were stabbed at a secondary school in Wales. A Man Valley school was put into lockdown shortly after 11 a.m. after 3 people were injured. Emergency services responded, including Wales Air Ambulance. Police say the injuries are not life-threatening. Forensic teams have been on site and a knife has been recovered. The suspect remains in custody. Superintendent Ross Evans spoke to the media.
I'm aware that there is footage circulating on social media, and I would ask that this is kindly removed to preserve the integrity of the ongoing investigation and to avoid further distress to those involved. This was a very distressing incident, and our thoughts are with the victims.
An online terror group has become the first of its kind to be proscribed in the UK. MPs voted for neo-fascist group Terrorgram to be banned. The Home Office says the group publishes propaganda designed to incite followers to commit violence. It was credited by an attacker who killed 2 people in an LGBT nightclub shooting in Slovakia in 2022. Support for the group will be illegal, with punishment of up to 14 years in prison. 3 men have been arrested following the deaths of 5 migrants, including a young girl, while trying to cross the Channel yesterday. The National Crime Agency says they were arrested on suspicion of facilitating illegal immigration and for entering the UK illegally. Those detained include 2 Sudanese men, aged 22 and 19, and a 22-year-old South Sudan national. It comes as figures from the Home Office show more than 400 migrants crossed the Channel yesterday. Well, the Army says that 3 soldiers were hospitalised when household cavalry horses bolted in central London this morning. Several military horses were spooked by construction noise and unseated their riders before making off. Video posted to social media appeared to show one of the animals covered in blood. At least 4 people were injured as they galloped their way through the busy city streets. They were eventually rounded up and transported for veterinary care. And the government is set to face a High Court challenge against its XL bully ban. The campaign group has been given permission to bring legal action against the Department for Environment and Rural Affairs. The large bulldog-type American breed was added to a banned list in October last year following a series of gruesome attacks. Campaigners argue that the ban is unlawful. Government lawyers say the challenge should be dismissed. For the latest stories, why not sign up to GB News Alerts? All you need to do is scan the QR code. It's on the right-hand side of your screen right now, or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Back now to Patrick.
Is it a crime in England to be white and patriotic? The Metropolitan Police appeared to want to fight yesterday. They appeared to want to hammer people celebrating St George's Day. Before the event even started, they decided to kettle people in. They decided to ban face coverings as well, so they tweeted this. A number of people have been seen in the area wearing masks. A Section 60AA order giving officers the power to require the removal of face coverings is now in force. What, you mean face coverings like these? Do you? That's interesting. Well, that guy there as well who seemed free to wear a mask while brandishing what looks a lot like the Al-Qaeda flag. Yeah, there we go. There's people there covering their faces as well. Well, there's no dispersal order there, is there? That's interesting. Ah, OK. All right. Well, there were these scenes of people in a pub chanting things like, "I'm England till I die," and, you know, the old 10 German bombers in the air song. Here's how the police responded. Really? Some people may find those chants unsavoury, all right, but may I remind everybody that this was allowed. A genocidal slogan on Big Ben. From the river to the sea can be heard every other Saturday right across the capital city and probably in a town or city near you as well. Chants in support of the Houthi rebels and, of course, this stuff about actual jihad. Well, there's a marked difference, isn't there, in how heavy-handed the police are when it comes to people waving the flag of St George as opposed to the now incredibly fashionable Palestinian flag. Here we go.
Wow, children!
All right, so you got to look at that. Now have a look at this. Not a police officer in sight there, was there? Really, seriously? Could you see one? I couldn't see one. But when you can see the police officers, what do they actually do? Look at this.
I cannot believe you guys are taking this.
Well, not a huge amount. That's the right kind of protest. We're not going to get involved with that kind of protest, are we? The other one wasn't even a protest, by the way. It's a celebration. Now, before the usual types start up at me, yes, I know that maybe not everyone at the gathering for St George's Day was a saint themselves. I know, like in any crowd, there might be a few unsavoury characters. Fine, but look, when you compare this to this.
Yeah, it is what it does. Nothing. Unbelievable.
Why is it that our police force in England decided to take batons and horses to ones waving the England flag and not those who, in my view, all too often hate this country and everything we stand for? Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. The director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. I've got businessman and activist Adam Brooks and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Mark, I'll start with you. The police there taking, in my view, an unforgivable approach to people just out celebrating St George's Day.
It's a pretty staggering selection of clips that you've got there, Patrick. And I was trying to look through... Look, I wasn't at the coalface at any of these events, but I was trying to look through on the news reports about what was done wrong. The crowd sang England Till I Die, joined in with songs including Sweet Caroline and Take Me Home Country Roads, something I'm guilty of myself many times over recent years.
I've heard you do it.
The only thing that I can find which I found a bit weird was Lawrence Fox said he was afraid to walk the streets of the capital city because the Met Police is run by the most corrupt dictator the world has ever seen. I'm no fan of Sadiq Khan, but that might be an overstatement. Here's the problem, though, right? It's not just whether justice is being done or policing is being done. It's whether it's seen to be fair.
Yeah.
And if there is any suggestion, and I think you have raised a very fair suggestion with those clips, that policing is different, one type of the community for the other. We saw the Gideon Falter case with somebody who was openly Jewish being treated apparently differently. Once that happens, faith in policing breaks down, even if they're going to say an awful lot happened that you don't know about. But if the perception breaks down, I'm afraid faith in the police force breaks down. That's a disaster.
I think it appears to me, Adam, anyway, that at the moment we have a police force in our capital city who sees, quite often, blokes with bald heads draped in the flag of St George as a threat, but people carrying the Al-Qaeda flag as people who can just crack on with their lives.
I'll tell you what it is. It's political policing. This is two-tier policing. So... for me, you can't always blame these officers. This comes from the top. We've got a woke police commissioner. We've got Sadiq Khan, who's the worst mayor we could have at this time. At the end of the day, I believe the Met hierarchy give the orders to allow certain things because they are scared of the backlash if they are seen to be batting in pro-Palestinian protesters or BLM protesters. They're scared that they're going to be labelled. We see this with the Rotherham grooming gangs. Police were told from Downing Street to ignore certain things in case it inflamed social tensions, in case they were labelled as racist. This is what is happening with the Met Police. They are scared to do their job and actually enact the law, and that is scary times.
Why was there even a problem about, so this is early doors, this is before things are, the police presence there, kettling people in, for what? Other protesters seemingly allowed to go wherever they go. That's not a protest, actually, sorry, it's not even a protest, so what am I talking about? It's a celebration of St George's Day, right? So, it's just people out there, having a few pints, granted, probably, but why are the police getting involved? The horses are coming in. What for?
I think the argument that it's two-tier policing falls down when you look at the treatment of the women at the Sarah Everard vigil. There is a real problem with the way that police deal with events in this country, whether they are demonstrations or visuals or celebrations. I am not a fan of the police, and I think they are badly trained and badly equipped to handle this situation. There are some men scrapping in that, and I doubt they got the permits and permissions they perhaps needed, but those men are clearly not terrorists. They're clearly not here to try and hurt anybody. And the police are, I think, in lots of times drunk on their own power, and they enjoy breaking up things that they can.
But not when it comes to pro-Palestine.
Let's just remember.
But lots of other left-wing causes have been, and the openly Jewish thing is the same thing. They are consistently bad at this, and that's not political. They're just bad at it.
Look, let's just remember, we're not anti-police here. I don't know.
I am anti-police. Sorry.
Well, you're anti-police. So at the end of the day, if someone breaks into your home, who do you call?
They will do nothing.
No, if there is an intruder in your house, who do you call?
Oh, if I call somebody right now,
you call the police.
My house. I honestly, I don't know if I would.
At the end of the day, if we want to live in a civilised society, we need a police force that does its job.
And it doesn't do its job.
And they have to do their job fairly. They're not doing that in London at the moment.
Across the country.
The idea, Mark, that you would have people literally chanting, all sorts of obscene filth on every other given Saturday in London, genocidal stuff, anti-Semitic stuff, and you would conceivably storm a pub because of 10 German bombers in the air. Yeah. I think, come on.
No, that's right, and often Adam and I agree on most things. I sometimes find you a little overstated, Adam, but on this occasion, you've been understated.
Who, me?
You have been understated. The problem is worse than you are suggesting, because I don't think it is a clear order coming from on high. I think it's a nudge and a wink and a suggestion.
You don't think Mark Rowley is woke? I mean, he's real old school, no pride. He tried to ban pride badges. He tried to ban anything other than the poppy.
The overall culture...
He's weak.
It's not...
I think he's bad at his job, but he's not right on.
In my view, it's not that an order has gone down to say smash up the St George's marches but let the pro-Palestinian marches happen. There won't be a piece of paper or a memo that said that. It's worse. It's more insidious. It's a nudge and a wink. And are you going to get on? And what's the right thing to do? And what will it look like? And we've actually just got to get back to the memos and the orders and the clear rules and procedures. Because I've been looking through this and I can't distinguish by one was police
Let's remember, a lot of the mainstream media won't report it, but yesterday Tommy Robinson was cleared in court in his case against the Met Police. The Met Police unlawfully banned him from London. He was pepper sprayed. Now, has the hierarchy then flexed their muscles, knowing that he's going to be in London and his friends are going to be in London and supporters are maybe going to be in London, and thought, we're going to send the message back?
They weren't so strong when there were people who are members of a now banned terror group, Hizb ut-Tahrir.
At the end of the day,
that's the point,
if
right?
someone says they want jihad on the streets of this city, I want that person ripped off forcefully and stuck in a van.
But they were all right to say that, and the police issued a thing to say as context. We needed to... There's context around the word jihad.
Jihad does mean struggle, technically.
Oh, come off
it translates as struggle.
Come off it. You're not that naive that they're singing that for struggle.
They're not, yes, I agree with that. They're not just saying there's a struggle going on.
I'm not there. I didn't hear it. I don't like to speculate about things that I haven't seen.
But it does look like these are being treated differently, and that is a problem.
But they're not.
It's a problem even if it looks like it.
If you look at the Eid celebrations, some of them were over police. The Sarah Everard vigil was over police. The police are just bad at their job.
There was riots at the end of Eid.
So how do you answer the Sarah Everard question? Women were being sat on by police officers and choked. How do you answer that?
That's the point, though, isn't it? Because they're still not members. They're not members of the pro-Palestine, dare I say it, British Muslim community. And there is a difference there in the police response, and I think that's worth highlighting.
And they're not in riot gear then. At the end of the day, I believe they dress up in this riot gear.
They were in riot gear for the Sarah Everard visual.
We've got to wrap, people, but thank you. Coming up, we reveal the trans supply teacher explaining gender identity to 7-year-olds in tonight's press pack, and another absolute corker, by the way, it is, believe it or not, drag queens for Palestine time. But next, after household cavalry horses escaped today, causing chaos across London, is the use of horses by the military actually animal cruelty? Co-founder of Animal Rising, Dan Kidby, goes up against Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. That's next, and it's on Patrick Christys Tonight.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Rishi Sunak has come out fighting and declared war on what he's called the UK's sick note culture. The country's welfare state bill costs the average taxpayer now £2,000 every single year for every British taxpayer. Astonishing numbers, Catherine, simply mind-bending. 69 billion quid every year now goes on benefits. I paid my tax bill last month. Where did your tax go? I clicked on it. Long-term sickness and benefits is now second only to the NHS on what we spend our tax pound on. This is simply unsustainable.
That's exactly what the Prime Minister said. 69 billion a year on long-term sick and disability benefits, projected to rise to 90 billion by the end of the next Parliament if nothing has done. As he said, it is totally, totally unsustainable. And the message from Rishi Sunak really is tough love. You're going to take your medicine. It's going to be good for you. You may not like it. Let's have a look at what he had to say earlier.
Everyone with the potential should be supported. And not just to earn, but to contribute and belong. And we must never tolerate barriers that hold people back from making their contribution and from sharing in that sense of self-worth that comes from feeling part of being something bigger than ourselves. And that is why this is a moral mission, and why the value of work is so central to my vision for welfare reform.
Certainly, Rishi Sunak said in the speech, in the period since the pandemic, something has gone wrong. Of course, millions of people had their wages paid by furlough. Now, that was an entirely artificial situation in an exceptional circumstance, but quite a lot of people left the workplace and simply haven't come back.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people. To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
This is Patrick Christys tonight. We're on GB News. Coming up, I will bring you the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. They are hot off the press with my top panel. But first, unbelievable scenes in the heart of London today as blood-soaked horses who has escaped from the household cavalry rampaged through the streets. Well, after 5 horses broke free during a training exercise, they did cause chaos. They smashed into vehicles and pedestrians, and 4 people were being treated for injuries in hospital. But amazingly, 2 of the spooked animals actually managed, get this, right, to gallop nearly 6 miles far into East London. I mean, seriously, it's quite the feat, actually. So all of the horses have since been recovered. Thankfully, they are receiving medical attention as well. But the incident has now raised questions about the safety and ethics of using animals in the military, especially, I think it must be said, in very busy, built-up areas like our capital city. Well, I'm delighted now to welcome the co-founder of Animal Rising, Kidby, and defence analyst, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. Both of you, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Dan, I mean, I think I can guess your answer on this, but, I mean, you know, do you think that this is maybe the end of the line now for workhorses like this?
Yeah, well, I mean, these have been on their way out for a long time now, really, haven't they? I mean, I think what I want to stress is that these were dramatic scenes that we saw today, and shocking scenes, and I'm sure many people sitting at home were highly distressed to see what was happening. But this isn't out of the ordinary. During William and Kate's wedding, we saw horses breaking loose and bolting. We saw that happening at the Queen's funeral. A few years ago in Hyde Park, a horse got their leg caught in a gun carriage and broke their leg and then was killed by the military. So as much as this has been, you know, this has cut through into the media today, really want to stress this is common in this unjust practice.
OK, and obviously you'd ban it. I'm just going to ask you now, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford, I mean, are these horses well looked after? I'll be honest with you, it was quite upsetting, really, I think, today, seeing those horses, you know, charging through the capital city, obviously spooked, one of them bleeding.
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't think anybody would be delighted to see animals in distress running about because, obviously, they've been spooked. And it is quite shocking to see a white horse covered in blood running through the streets of our capital city. I would just say that, and I do really understand, and I'm sympathetic with the arguments against the uses of horses, but they are purely for ceremonial purposes, and you only have to look at them to realise how well looked after they are in terms of how they're housed and trained and the veterinary services that there are provided for them. So I think that it's not quite a black and white issue. There are sort of grey issues, if you like, to be dealt with here. But in the past, of course, horses have been a fundamental part of the military endeavours. And in the First World War, for example, Britain alone lost nearly 500,000 horses killed in that conflict. But we must remember that we also lost nearly 1 million men in that conflict. So it's not quite cut and dried.
OK. All right. Dan, I mean, look, they are ceremonial, they've got a purpose, and they are, clearly, I would imagine, for the most part, very, very well looked after. What would you do with them all? You know, they might not even have a life if they weren't there for that purpose.
Yeah, well, I want to talk through like what it means to be a ceremonial horse. So these are in unnatural environments for horses, forced to do unnatural things. They have very rigid, highly controlled movements that these horses are forced to make. And how is it that that happens? Well, you have a rider sitting on their back holding reins, and those reins are attached to metal bits that go into their mouth and tug very painfully, very severely at the horse's mouth, which forces them to then respond with the movements that the rider wants. So this is a very uncomfortable, painful, stressful experience for horses. And you add into that the fact that they are surrounded by onlookers, by people looking at what's happening. You know, horses are prey animals. Like small things that happen can spook them, can scare them. So you have the pain that they're experiencing, plus you know the havoc of the streets. And it's clear that this just needs to stop happening.
All right. Look, Stuart, do you think Dan's been a bit soft there? Stuart?
Pathetic.
Yeah,
I'm sympathetic to what he's saying, but it's a two-way street. Horses have been part of, have coexisted with human beings for centuries, thousands of years, and that will continue. And they're not exploited in the same way as they used to be, but they are extremely well looked at. And I come back to my point. You only have to look at the horses that the household cavalry rides in London and elsewhere in ceremonial duty to see how well looked after they are. And so I think that we have to be cognizant of the fact that to a certain extent they are being exploited, but they're also extremely well looked after.
Yeah, OK. I mean, Dan, look, they're not show jumping, OK? They are not racing in the Grand National. They're not actually being ridden into battle, all right? I mean, as far as you can tell, you know, these horses are surely absolutely fine, aren't they? I mean, they might enjoy it a bit more. They might have more stimulation than if you just put them out to pasture.
Well, these horses spend most of their lives in very small stables, standing still. Even as part of the military practice, they have to stand still for very long periods of time. You know, we've seen these horses today. They've ran like 5 or 6 miles. Horses, the image that we have of horses, that we are told in our storybooks of horses running in open fields. You know, instead we're met with images like this. It's like, I think what we really need to do is take this quite shocking, dramatic incident and use it as an opportunity to really reevaluate our relationship with animals and see what is the way that we do want to coexist with them.
Yeah, all right. Stuart, if their only purpose really is ceremonial, then what's the point? I mean, it's a living ornament then, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is. It's part of the British tradition, and many people would say a good thing too. I think the more interesting question might be, in the light of what's happened in London recently, is the use of horses by the police force to enforce law and order. Yeah. Where I think that there is a great utility in using them, and of course, famously up here in Scotland, they have been used on numerous occasions for crowd control at football matches between our two rival Glasgow football teams. So I think they have utility. I think they're useful, but I do think they're well looked after. And within the context of the fact that they are being used by humans for a purpose, I think basically we've got it more or less right.
Yeah, OK. All right, guys, look, good stuff. Thank you very, very much. Great to have you both on the show. That was the co-founder of Animal Rising, Dan Kippy there, and defence analyst Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. I can be honest with you, I'm unusually split on this issue. Unusually split on it. I really didn't like looking at that today with the horses running through the city. I thought, oh, but then I think, well, you know, it's part of tradition, I suppose, and they do serve a practical purpose. They're not just living ornaments, as I was saying there. But anyway, look, coming up. Would you dare get in a flying car? Well, one now exists. and we're going to show it to you. But next, I will bring you the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press, with tonight's panel of top pundits. And yes, it exists. It's drag queens for Palestine. Stay tuned.
Hi there, welcome to the GB News forecast from the Met Office. It's going to be chilly overnight. Through the next 24 hours, however, increasing cloud will bring further showers by the end of Thursday. We've got higher pressure ebbing away towards the west and its increased influence from low pressure to the east. In between, some clear spells overnight and a chilly northerly airflow. That means temperatures will fall quickly. Under any clear spells, in rural sheltered spots, temperatures will dip below freezing. Generally in urban areas 4 to 6 Celsius, and there'll be variable amounts of cloud first thing as well. There'll also be increasing amounts of showery rain moving through Northern Ireland, parts of Wales, northern and central England, as well as the northeast of Scotland. The showery rain will become more widespread by the afternoon, so for much of England and Wales, it's a case of bright spells interspersed by showers. Drier towards the northwest, western Scotland mostly dry with some decent sunny spells, 12 or 13 Celsius here, 14 or 15 in the southwest, just 10 again on the North Sea coast. Friday starts off cold with a frost in many places. A sunny start, but quite quickly the cloud will build and we'll see further showers here and there, particularly towards the east. The weekend brings more unsettled weather from the south, longer spells of rain affecting many parts of England and Wales, drier for Scotland and Northern Ireland.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. We are on GB News and I've got the very first look at tomorrow's front pages. Let's do it. Right then, we go in with the Metro. Labour nationalised rail in 5 years. End of the line for failing train firms. Election promise to axe franchises, but industry warns political plan will raise costs. Well, of course they would say that. Anyway, let's go to the Independent. Sabre-rattling Sunak. EU must spend more on NATO to fight Putin. The Prime Minister has challenged his European allies to match his increase in defence spending to counter axis of authoritarian states. Yeah, interesting. He really is trying to lead the way on that, isn't he? Right, The Sun. Jude's going Dutch. Hey, good lad. Footy superstars' new romance reveal. Jude Bellingham scoring on and off the pitch. Anyone? Anyone? No. All right, fine. Sorry. Sorry. Exclusive. Royal tragedy. OK. Beatrice X in drug death. Now we go to the Eye. Revealed. Labour's plan to nationalise UK railways. So they're both going off on the old UK railways. Labour will immediately start process of bringing rail system back under public control for the first time in 30 years. The Guardian, yep, same one here. Labour pledges to nationalise rail network within 5 years. And the era of peace in Europe is over, Kiev warns the West. Yes, and there's obviously a lot of pictures about galloping horses, which we have just covered here. Now, I am, of course, joined by my fabulous panel. I have got the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. I've got businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. I'm going to whiz through a couple of those front pages thing and get straight into this, because if you think the Cass report would scare the gender ideologues away from our children, but it appears they're still at it. A trans supply teacher at a Church of England school revealed their gender identity in front of 7-year-old pupils, telling them, I'm so gorgeous because I've put makeup on and had a shave. But it doesn't end there. It was also revealed that a children's charity in Scotland called puberty blockers wonderful. Rebecca, are our children at risk here? 7-year-old kids from, you know, trans ideologues?
No, I don't think they're at risk. I think that comment is taken out of context, and I can see exactly how it might have been a more appropriate comment if you heard the whole thing. And the mum who reported it was very nuanced about it. She just said, look, I don't think this person's evil or bad. I'm just confused at why this is said in the classroom. Fair question to ask, but the thing is...
Well, should it be said in the classroom?
But I think the problem is 7-year-olds ask questions. So 7-year-olds will say things like, why doesn't that man have any arms? Why does that woman's face look like that? And then you have to answer that question. So if a child said to the teacher, are you a man or a woman, they could reasonably be expected to say, I am a trans woman.
You're making up a scenario to excuse...
But in that scenario, what's the teacher supposed to do?
At the end of the day, he's got a beard, he's not gorgeous. Come on, Dave.
Have you seen is this somebody who has a beard? Have you seen pictures of this person?
Well, he's had
a shave.
So then they probably don't have a beard.
Look, okay. The quote is this, isn't it? That I mean, I'm assuming this quote is accurate.
You weren't there.
I'm so gorgeous because I've put makeup on and had a shave. Now, to my mind, Patrick, actually, this isn't especially a trans issue. It's just an issue of inappropriateness.
Exactly.
Whether this was a straight white woman saying, I'm so gorgeous because I've put on makeup
in front of kids.
Or a straight man saying, you know, I'm so gorgeous, girls, because I work out in the gym. It's just not appropriate for 7-year-old kids. So to my mind, it's not really the trans issue, it's the appropriateness. This is what troubles me a bit here. I've had a look at what the head teacher has sent. I must call him head teacher, not headmaster. Rebecca keeps correcting me on that. Moving forward, says Jen Johnson, moving forward. People always want to bury things.
It's time to move on. It's important to move forward.
And having spoken to the supply agency, for this was indeed a supply teacher, we have reaffirmed the school's expectations for what we expect supply teachers to deliver. If I was a parent of a kid at this school, I'd like to know what that is. I'm not saying you should be hung, drawn and quartered for this, but it's inappropriate and there should be some disciplinary action.
One supply teacher, you disrupt your whole child's education.
I would take my kid out of that school
that is so sad.
Until that teacher is removed from the classroom.
Supply teacher, they're going to remove themselves. That's the nature of the job.
Do you agree
that teacher should not be in that school?
The head should tell parents what they do expect from supply teachers, and whether... I don't think the disciplinary action here should be career-ending, but I think there should be some, and from what I've heard from the school, it's just sort of moving forward, time to move on.
Well, they're pushing the responsibility back onto the agency.
Can I just say, is it not arguably worse then, right, that it's gone from just maybe being, you know, a permanent teacher at the school or whatever to essentially a stranger has been allowed to wander into a school,
a fully DBS-checked stranger with a degree in education,
and just plant that thing in a load of 7-year-olds' minds and then leave.
A fully trained teacher with a degree in teaching and a full, clean DBS, enhanced
pretending
DBS
to be a woman, trying to influence 7-year-old kids.
But legally, transgender people have every right to be teachers. What are you going to do? Fire somebody for being trans?
This is the thing.
Keep their mouth shut about the gender ideology
but children,
in classrooms.
You have children. Children
well,
ask
then
questions.
say to the children, I would expect to say, you know, that's not appropriate for me to answer that today. Ask mummy and daddy.
I think you could very reasonably say that the I'm gorgeous thing isn't fair, but but it is perfectly reasonable for a teacher to say I am gay or I am trans, not and you should be too, or if you like Barbies, you're trans.
Why would 7-year-olds be asking their teacher whether they're gay or straight?
Because children, who do you live with? Are you married? Children ask questions.
Yeah, but they wouldn't.
Children do ask questions.
To ask a question about that. So, I mean, look, it seems to be a sentence out of context. It wasn't in a class about what used to be called civics when I was at school. It wasn't an English class. It seems just to be a sentence at the beginning. I think they've got to clarify that they've told this teacher that they made an error, they made a misstep, and it mustn't happen again. I'm not quite as hardcore as Adam on this, but that hasn't yet happened.
I wouldn't want him teaching my kids again, so the school must clarify whether he comes back in.
All right.
So would you let your child be... You just wouldn't let your child be taught by a trans person?
No, by a trans person that inappropriately puts images or suggestions in my child's
OK, so if they're trans and they're not talking about being trans, that's fine?
Right.
Well, that's what he said, basically, yeah.
Come on.
No, I'm asking.
Are you listening to me or not?
But no, so if you'd be happy with a trans teacher as long as they weren't using this kind of language?
If they taught how they're meant to teach and don't put suggestions in my children's minds, then
as long as it was just an English lesson, right?
Great, fantastic. So trans people are welcome to be teachers.
But this wasn't just an English lesson by the sounds of it.
We all agree trans people can be teachers, that's good.
OK, right, now, 75-year-old music legend Jean-Michel Jarre, me neither, but maybe you do know that, I don't know, became the world's first passenger riding this latest invention in Slovakia. Would you get on this? OK, so this is Klein Vision's half-plane hybrid, the Air Car. It's the latest invention to turn the concept of flying cars into a reality. The Slovakian government revealed that they want flying taxis by 2030. I mean, I think I'll stick to aeroplanes. I've got to be honest with you, to me, there doesn't seem to be a world of difference between that and a plane.
There is nothing. No. That is, planes have wheels.
Listen,
you can drive a plane.
Planes do have wheels. I got on one last night and it had wheels.
Yeah, sorry, I'm calling no.
Is it environmentally friendly? What is the emissions on that thing? I'm really worried for my kids' future.
It's a plane, Adam, so it's going to be the same as a plane.
No, it's electric. It's got some electric greeny thing about it.
Still a plane.
The UN will be happy.
But it's definitely a plane, yeah.
I'm not having it, it's a plane.
All right, well, there we go. Look, coming up. The climax of tonight's show. Yes. Find out why Benjamin Butterworth features in our Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But before that, we bring you more of tomorrow's front pages, as well as the boy who sounds just like a seagull. Stay tuned.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the quaint Derbyshire village of Sudbury, there's a storm brewing between the local football club and the National Trust. This grass field might seem unremarkable, but for hundreds of years it's been part of the Sudbury Hall estate, playing host to the village football and cricket matches. Now the National Trust are planning to put an end to that tradition in the name of biodiversity, with plans for trees and plants where the football club play. Some worry it breaks a memorandum of wishes from the late Lord Vernon, whose family have lived here since 1660. Manager of Sudbury FC Tom Crutchley says he's upset at the decision.
Naturally disappointed. We've been here, this is our 9th year. We've put a lot of effort into here to keep playing, to maintain it. I'm from the village originally, so personally it was, it is very upsetting.
MP for Derbyshire Dale Sarah Dines says the National Trust aren't respecting the history of the site.
I feel they're trampling over the wishes of historic owners who gave up this wonderful site for the nation. And for over 100 years, people have played football and cricket here. It's incredibly sad. Incredibly sad. And it's against the wishes of a lot of people locally who've written to me from the village.
Sudbury Hall lives under the branding of the Children's Country House, a decision which Dines says is disrespectful to the history of the estate.
I mean, this is fake to make it into a children's theme park. It's almost a reimagining, and in fact, that's the very words it says on their website. The house is reopened, it's been reimagined. I don't want our heritage to be reimagined. I think the National Trust has been captured by people who have different ideas than most people in this country.
Whilst the public will still be able to roam these historic grounds, the village feels like a legacy is being snatched away. Jack Carson, GB News, Sudbury.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. It's time to give you even more of tomorrow's front pages. Let's do it. I go with the Mirror. Labour will nationalise rail in 5 years. OK. The Daily Mail. Schoolgirl stabs teacher in neck. A Year 9 pupil held for the attempted murder over horrific flick knife attack in playground at Bray. Gosh. The Telegraph, Starmer refuses to match the PM's defence budget. We've spoken about that already tonight. Interesting one, this. Child drinkers rise in generation lockdown. The number of children in England consuming alcohol has risen hugely. Generation lockdown to reach record levels, international research shows. So we can add child alcoholism to the list of damages to lockdown now. Sophia,
the pubs were shut.
Well done.
Sending us all skin, and they was all getting their mates to buy them from supermarkets.
No, there's nothing wrong with a nice little glass of wine with dinner when you're a child.
Brilliant.
It's fine. Teaches you to appreciate
Off to the Daily Express. Horror in the playground As teacher stabbed, yeah. The teacher was slashed across the neck. This is all allegedly and reportedly, of course, as she bravely tried to stop an alleged knife attack on a pupil. I would expect you're going to be hearing a heck of a lot more about that story on GB News tomorrow. Let's go to the Times. England worst in world for underage drinking. There we go. So it's hit 2 front pages. Third of 11-year-olds have had alcohol. A study says that middle classes normalise harmful habits. I don't really know. I appreciate the irony of me saying this, by the way. But I don't know how uncommon it is for an 11-year-old to have a sip of, the parents to have given him a sip of wine.
Yeah, I just started drinking when I was about 11.
Yeah, I was too.
No, I lived above pubs.
When I was about 13.
I lived above pubs. I used to sneak down and try the beer.
As long as it's in moderation, it's
yeah,
not
exactly.
so much of a problem.
I think that's the question, though, isn't it? Whether or not lockdown has had some more of an effect on this. Right, OK, look, I'm joined, I've already introduced him, you've just seen him, there you go. My wonderful press pack. But now, it's not just gender ideology being rammed down the throats of our children. Are you ready for this? A drag queen decides to introduce Middle East conflict into the mix. Watch.
Today what we're going to do is we're going to shout, Free Palestine. Can I hear that? Free Palestine! If you're a drag queen and you know it, shout, Free Palestine! If you're a drag queen and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're a drag queen and you know it, shout, Free Palestine! Excellent.
Is it excellent?
Let's put him in Gaza and see how long he survives.
What even is it?
That is a man dressed as a woman.
No, but what is...
It's a fella called...
class about what?
Well, it's
we have drag queen story time, so I take my daughters to one occasionally.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Have you ever taken your kids to the pantomime?
Drag queen story hour is not pantomime.
That is a man in a dress, just like in a pantomime. The same thing. Exactly
the Free Palestine thing.
Basically, if you get people who are worthy enough, they like to double up. So then we can't just take our kids to story time. We have to also have
drag queen and a bit of ultra left.
So look, this is very lefty American performative parenting. But you know what? When you have a kid and you're lonely and you're bored, you need somewhere to take your child. And for that, it was advertised as being this. They all knew what they were getting into. Nobody was forced to go. To each their own.
Indoctrinating kids again. What
I like my drag queens apolitical.
What is going on in the world?
Does no one there, including that particular drag queen, not appreciate the irony of drag queens for Palestine?
Yeah, the Queers for Palestine thing is a bit...
Go to Gaza, you'll be on the 10th floor of a building in no time, flying towards the pavement. Won't you?
Yeah, fair enough. I think the argument would be that people are able to...
Virtual signalling, yeah!
It's virtue signalling.
I said virtue signalling.
You said virtual signalling.
No, I didn't. You're not listening to me again.
Do you not think this is, I don't know, a bit ridiculous, Mark?
I'm absolutely astonished. I can't... Look, I'm not a parent, but I cannot get my head around why anyone would think... I've got to drop the kids off. Quite
you have to stay with them.
And best thing to do is drag queen, ultra lefty, pro Palestine.
Because it's fun. Well, the drag queen bit is that it's fun. It's the same as pantomime. I don't like it when they're in skimpy clothing.
It's pretty odd.
It's fun. They sing songs.
I think the drag queens get more out of this than the kids, and that's saying something.
I worry.
All right, so now. Different story, also involving kids, though. 9-year-old Cooper Wallace from Chesterfield travelled all the way to Belgium to partake in a competition to do this.
3, 2, 1.
So that was young Cooper at the European Gull Screeching Championships, where he won. Well, Cooper and his mother appeared on breakfast earlier today on GB News.
Know how to impersonate a seagull, for instance. I mean, Mum, does he watch them? Does he study them? Does he practice this?
He enjoys watching them at the beach, but he was bitten by one while we were at the seaside a few years ago, and he believes he's got the Spider-Man effect.
Right. Right.
Patrick, you have to say something now.
Is that bad parenting? I'll say it. Is that bad parenting? Is it bad parenting? Should you have let your kid come on national television and do the seagull thing?
A glittering career beckons. I'm just so delighted that despite Brexit, we can still enter the European gull screeching competition. I was warned by the Remainers we never would be allowed to enter the European gull screeching competition, but here you go.
I wonder if he
still at the heart of Europe.
I wonder if he poos all over the patio.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, how far does he take it? That's what I want to know. Does he nick your chips and put one in your car?
I think sometimes it's okay to not encourage your children in their dreams. Sometimes it's okay to say, no, more TV today.
You know, I just think that kid that's going to live with him forever.
Yeah, and it's on the internet.
And it's... maybe that's fine. Maybe that's a fine thing. But is it, though, really, when you think about it?
Didn't Michael Portillo, though, as a kid, but was he the Milky Bar kid or something? He was...
Michael
Sorry, Michael Portillo
was made famous as a kid in advertisement. I can't remember if it was Milky Bar or something else. GB News presenter, a glittering career followed. Who's to say? If you can take kids to pro-Palestine drag queens, you can definitely get them to act like a seagull.
Well, that's the beauty of parenting in this country, is that you can choose to take your kids wherever you feel is appropriate.
And seagull screeching is part of that.
Kids
he was the Ribena kid. Michael Portillo was the Ribena kid.
The Ribena kid.
Ribena?
What is that?
Yeah, he was the Ribena kid.
Right, look, this show's got weird quick. OK, so there we go. That was some stuff about seagulls. It's time to do today's Greatest Britain Union Jackass. Right, Mark, who's your greatest Briton, please?
Frank Field, legend of a politician, opposite side of the aisle to me, sadly just passed away, brilliant man, they don't make him like they used to, imaginative thinker, and somebody who reached out across the aisle. I really wish we had more politicians like Frank Field in today's politics. I also wish he'd seen higher office, but he was a brilliant politician right the way throughout his illustrious career, sadly missed.
Yeah, no, well, very good start. Yes, go on, Adam.
Mine is James SS, who has wrote a letter to the PM calling for an inquiry into gender ideology and the harming of children, of which I'm one of the signatories. J.K. Rowling and many media figures are also on the list. Well done.
OK, all right. Rebecca?
Mine is those horses. I really respect the break for freedom, and I'm sad they didn't manage to make it to the countryside to build a better life for themselves, free from the shackles of the army.
Oh, bless. Right, now, can I just say sometimes the way that I choose these Greatest Britain and Union Jackasses is I'm doing other stuff in the office and, you know, some wonderful team out there, they'll go, oh, look, can we just get you... And I don't really think about it. So I probably should have gone for Frank Field, but I've actually gone for Rogue Horses. So, sorry, Frank. But there we go. Anyway, right, OK, so who is your Union Jackass, Mark?
Well, I've just mentioned for my nomination for Greatest Brit was a Labour Party politician. Here's the side of the Labour Party I don't like. The Labour-run Welsh Government have now finalised guidelines which could lead public bodies to remove, quote, highly contentious art from view if it, quote, insults or hurts members of the public. New anti-racism guidance. Spare me. This nonsense has to end.
Yeah, it does, really. I mean, so these are pieces of art that could hurt members of the public. It's not now just offensive if you take it in the wrong context.
Insulted.
This will hurt you. Yeah. If you watch that, look at that Monet, it'll hurt you.
Yeah.
OK, right, Adam, who is your Union
Mine is Labour MP Angela Rayner for attacking Rishi's appearance and his height today. What a hypocrite. If it was back at her, she would be crying victim, and so would the Labour Party.
Here's the clip.
He was ditching their biggest election winner for a pint-sized loser.
It's a bit much, that, isn't it, actually? Genuinely. Isn't it a bit much?
Yeah, no, it's like, I'm the first person to defend her, but that was stupid, and it just gave them an open goal to call her a hypocrite. What was she thinking?
This lot are going to be in power in 6 or whatever months. Scary.
I think she's obviously... she's obviously pretty peed off, isn't she? They've gone after her on the tax thing, which, you know, I can understand. But, yeah, I just thought it was a bit weird.
Also, there have been previous times where her outfit choices and her appearance has been criticised, but just because somebody does it to you does not mean you can start doing it to other people. It's not appropriate.
Pint-sized loser, I thought was a bit odd. Anyway, go on back. Who's your...
Right, so mine is my friend and colleague, Benjamin Butterworth, because last night he picked Taylor Swift as his GB, and that's my thing. And I don't think he should have been allowed to, and I wasn't allowed to have Taylor Swift as my Greatest Britain today. So, Benjamin, I'm coming for you.
Is this really happening? Is this the level that we... Is this the depths that we've plumbed here on this show? I've been gone 4 days, right, and I come back to this rubbish.
Yeah, so I asked if I could do it, assuming I'd be told no, and I was told yes. Okay. It's like we've got a supply teacher.
Don't do that. Don't. It's all right. I think they're busy.
Ofcom like me.
Right, OK, shut up. OK, right, so today's Union Jackass is Angela Rayner MP. All right, well, look, thank you very, very much, everybody. This has been a lively show. It's been a pleasure for me to be back. In case you just tuned in, no, this isn't Dickinson's real deal. I've been away for 4 days, and the bad news for you is that there's a layer of red under this, which means the tan's probably going to get even worse before it gets better. But thank you, thank you, thank you. Headliners are up next to whiz you through these front pages that I've got right here and what's inside the book as well, in a little bit more detail. I'm ready, I'm raring, I'm refreshed to go for tomorrow at 9. Keep fighting the good fight, people.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the GB News forecast from the Met Office. It's going to be chilly overnight. Through the next 24 hours, however, increasing cloud will bring further showers by the end of Thursday. We've got higher pressure ebbing away towards the west and this increased influence from low pressure to the east. In between, some clear spells overnight and a chilly northerly airflow. That means temperatures will fall quickly. Under any clear spells, in rural sheltered spots, temperatures will dip below freezing. Generally in urban areas 4 to 6 Celsius, and there'll be variable amounts of cloud first thing as well. There'll also be increasing amounts of showery rain moving through Northern Ireland, parts of Wales, northern and central England, as well as the northeast of Scotland. The showery rain will become more widespread by the afternoon, so for much of England and Wales it's a case of bright spells interspersed by showers. Drier towards the northwest, western Scotland mostly dry with some decent sunny spells, 12 or 13 Celsius here, 14 or 15 in the southwest, just 10 again on the North Sea coast. Friday starts off cold with a frost in many places. A sunny start, but quite quickly the cloud will build and we'll see further showers here and there, particularly towards the east. The weekend brings more unsettled weather from the south, longer spells of rain affecting many parts of England and Wales, drier for Scotland and Northern Ireland.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize yet. With thanks to Variety Cruises, a family company sailing since 1942, you have the chance to win a £10,000 7-night small boat cruise for 2. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, you'll be able to choose from any one of their 2025 Greek adventures. Plus, you'll also win £10,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer sizzle. And we'll pack you off with these luxury travel gifts. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
On to another controversial character, this time Prince Harry. He's back in the headlines after a High Court judge ruled he must pay 90% of the Home Office legal costs for the case regarding the downgrading of his security.
And it could cost him in excess of £1 million. But he says he is determined to fight on. Let's speak to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. What do you make of this?
Well, it's a pretty hefty bill, Eamon. This all dates back, if you think, to 2020, when he stood back as a working member of the royal family. The Home Office downgraded his security, essentially, because he is no longer a working member of the royal family. Prince Harry argued that his family could not be safe in the UK. He also alleged that a paparazzi chased his car after the World Child Awards in 2021 when he came back to the UK. He sued the Home Office because his lawyers argued that he'd been singled out and treated less favourably than others in his position. In February, the High Court ruled that the decision to change his security was not unlawful or irrational, and they were entitled, the Home Office, to take the decision they did. Then yesterday, Prince Harry lost his initial bid to appeal that ruling from the High Court, and the judge ordered him to pay 90% of the Home Office's costs. But the judge agreed to a modest reduction, but that was only a 10% reduction, which is why we've got this 90% figure. But Prince Harry is going to directly appeal. So he does have the money to pursue these legal cases. He also has a couple of cases against various newspaper groups in the United Kingdom, and he sees it as his life's mission, really, to hold people to account, including the Home Office. But by doing that, he's also potentially bringing a bit of a hefty cost to us as a taxpayer, because this is the Home Office, who clearly is funded by taxpayers, and they're having to fork out this legal money. If Prince Harry wins the appeal, then us as taxpayers are out of pocket.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Good evening. Headliners is coming up next, but first, the top headlines this hour. Labour is promising to renationalise the railways if it wins the next general election. The party says it will be the biggest overhaul in a generation and claims that the taxpayer will not pay a penny in compensation costs. It would mean all networks would transfer to public ownership within Labour's first term. Meanwhile, the government's own proposals include the creation of a new public sector body to hold responsibility for rail infrastructure and to award contracts. A teenage girl has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after 2 teachers and a teenage student were stabbed at a secondary school in Wales. Aman Valley School was put into lockdown shortly after 11 a.m. after 3 people were injured. Emergency services responded, including Wales Air Ambulance. Police say the injuries are not life-threatening. Forensic teams were on the scene and a knife has been recovered. The suspect remains in custody. Superintendent Ross Evans spoke to the media.
I'm aware that there is footage circulating on social media, and I would ask that this is kindly removed to preserve the integrity of the ongoing investigation and to avoid further distress to those involved. This was a very distressing incident, and our thoughts are with the victims.
An online terror group has become the first of its kind to be proscribed in the UK. MPs voted for neo-fascist group Telegram to be banned. The Home Office says the group publishes propaganda designed to incite followers to commit violence. It was credited by an attacker who killed 2 people in an LGBT nightclub shooting in Slovakia in 2022. Support for the group will be illegal, with punishments of up to 14 years in prison. 3 men have been arrested following the deaths of 5 migrants, including a young girl, while trying to cross the Channel yesterday. The National Crime Agency says they were arrested on suspicion of facilitating illegal immigration and entering the UK illegally. Now, those detained include 2 Sudanese men, aged 22 and 19, and a 22-year-old South Sudan national. Comes as figures from the Home Office show that more than 400 migrants crossed the Channel yesterday. The Army says 3 soldiers were hospitalised today when household cavalry horses bolted in central London this morning. Several military horses were spooked by construction noise and unseated their riders before making off. Video posted to social media appeared to show one of the animals covered in blood. At least 4 people were injured as they galloped their way through the busy city streets. They were eventually rounded up and transported for veterinary care.